Hello and welcome to the RotoWire Esports Show. I am Andrew Laird, joined as always by Ethan Sexton, this time to talk about Tuesday's League of Legends slate on DraftKings. Ethan, we have one more two-game slate, at least until next week. But until the real ones start, this one felt initially like Saturdays where we had two big favorites. The favorites are significantly bigger on Tuesday.
Yep.
What are we supposed to do?
Yeah, I think tomorrow's going to be the chalkiest slate we've seen so far. At least Saturday when we had two big favorites, but at least, Suning, who ended up winning, at least they're a really good team who had just come off a second-place finish at Worlds, whereas on this slate, you've got two humongous favorites playing two teams that aren't expected to be as good. So it makes things even more challenging, really. I mean, tomorrow I think, it's just going to be a pretty big chalk fest, and we might see even more duplicate lineups than normal, unfortunately. So,
in fairness, one of the big favorites has lost every single game, every single series they've ever played while we've been doing the show. So, of course, they're the biggest favorite. TES huge against Rogue Warriors, FPX huge against OMG. I mean, does it seem like they're like, I haven't been playing long enough for slates like this to have like a memory of how they play out. But like with two massive favorites like this, if they both win, are we just stuck using double support and stuff like that? Like, is that where people tend to go?
I had a feeling you were going to ask me that, so I have a stat to bring to the podcast
Nice.
show for the first time. All right, so double support will undoubtedly be popular tomorrow. I'm sure that's a way a lot of people are going to look because it's a way you can fit the two big favorites in by putting a support in the captain spot. But on the small sample size that we have so far this season, only 4 times has a support led their team in kill participation, and in all 4 of those instances, they lost the series.
Huh. All
So
right.
just something to think about. I still think double support will undoubtedly be popular tomorrow. It's not something I like doing because it's not fun. Just like, to be completely honest, like it's just not that fun to have double support, but it is a viable way to go on a slate like this where you're just trying to jam in the two biggest favorites any way you can. So I do expect that's going to be a popular way to go. And I can't really fault people, especially in cash games, if you're looking to play the cash games for doing that, to be honest.
So
I think it's impossible to put 2 carries from the big favorites in. You're not going to be able to do that without punting somewhere else. So, that's going to be popular. People look to do double jungle if they can, and potentially even double top lane. And actually, double top lane, typically, top laners don't get the kill participation that the other roles get. On this slate in particular, though, you're looking at a guy in Nuguri who signed for FPX in the offseason, coming over from the World Champions in Damwon in Korea. And he's a guy that can take over and carry a game from the top lane. So on this particular slate, even a top lane captain isn't necessarily the worst idea, although it is pretty risky still just because that position tends to always end with the lowest kill participation in most games.
So that's where I was going. Like, I think in terms of differentiation, like if you can't do it with a jungler, with double jungler, can't do it with the carry, either carry. So really my question was going to be like, who scores the most of the 4, meaning the 2 supports and the 2 top laners? Like, who do you think actually scores the most points of those 4 among the favorites?
See, it's hard because I'm probably going to look at playing Nuguri if going the double favorites lineup, just because I don't want to play 2 supports. But I think what people have to decide is what we just kind of talked about a little bit. Like, the risk is definitely there with a guy like Nuguri, just because he plays top lane. A lot of times they end up playing on an island, and they don't get in as many kills or assists, at least at the higher percentages like the rest of the players on the team. But with that said, a guy like him can take over the game and end a game with double-digit kills sometimes, and it wouldn't be surprising to anyone. So I think the upside play is to go for like a double top. And I would personally take Nuguri, and I'm biased because I really like him as a player. So factor that into your guys' research, when you're making your lineups. But he is a guy that, tends to play carries, and he can take over games, and we've seen him with double-digit kill performances in the past. So I think he's the upside play, in my opinion, as we throw out the DFS terms, the upside and all that stuff. But I think he is the upside play. If you're looking to go double top, I think I'd go with him for sure over 369. 369 could take over a game as well, but he's not as much of a carry type guy normally as Nuguri is.
So I would go so bad on Saturday. Upside.
Yes. I mean, top esports were awful on Saturday. So
really, all of them were.
Yeah, it was just a pretty rough series for them. They have, much lower competition this time. But, who knows? We've kind of talked about it in every show we've done, I think. This is the time of year where those upsets are going to happen, in the early season. And, if you're on the right side, you're going to make, a decent amount of money with just strictly from leverage. And that's going to be the case again tomorrow with both Rogue Warriors and OMG are going to be pretty low owned. So that's definitely a way to go if you're looking to just to differentiate and try to make an easy way to get some leverage off of those two huge favorites, because top and FPX are most certainly going to be extremely high owned no matter what combinations people end up going with. I think they're going to have some massive ownership tomorrow. So it's not even like a skill thing, like we've said. Like on a slate like this, it's just straight up leverage. If you play one of those underdogs, or if you're really ballsy, play both underdogs, and that somehow randomly hits, that's a quick way to get yourself at the top of a GPP.
Literally
as
the top.
Unlikely as it seems.
Do you think if OMG wasn't as good in their first game, they lost, but they looked pretty good. Like if they hadn't played yet, do you think FPX would have been a bigger favorite? Like I was going in surprised that TES was such a huge favorite. Rogue Warriors looked pretty bad in their first game anyway, so maybe it's a little bit of that. But I was surprised to see TES so much bigger of a favorite than FPX.
Yeah, that certainly could have factored into it. I think too, people are still thinking of they're not taking Saturday into as much of account because they did face another team that should be competing for the title. So maybe they're kind of giving top esports a pass there. Even though they looked terrible, it was still against a team that should compete for the title. So maybe people are kind of giving them a little bit of a pass. And I think, too, like you said, factoring in how bad Rogue Warriors looked, this is on paper, this is a pretty big mismatch again. So, the fact that OMG took a game the other day, that could also play into why, FPX aren't as huge of favorites. But I think it's more just the fact that top esports were, one of the big teams from last year, and they're expected to be again this year, and Rogue Warriors just looked awful and are expected to be one of the poorer teams in the league this year.
So do you think more people go for TES or for FPX?
I honestly think it's a cop-out answer, I know, but I honestly think, no matter any combination that people can get where they can jam in the big favorites, is probably going to be fairly popular no matter if it's 2 top, 2 jungle, 2 support, however people end up doing it. I feel like all those combinations are going to be fairly popular, so it's hard for me to say. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer, but that's just kind of how I feel about this slate because we've got such huge favorites facing weaker competition. I think it's going to be fairly spread out. The combinations will be a little spread out, but the ownerships I think will be high no matter what.
Right.
Going in, so
if I was even just going to bring up the possibility of a one-off, but the odds of them sweeping are just so high too that
right. That's definitely a way to differentiate, and it's worked for some people in the past doing it that way. But I mean, are these games going to be high enough kills for the team that loses? Really hard to say, like I'm expecting 2 sweeps, and I know I said that Saturday as well, and got one of them. I mean, it was a sweep, but
it was a sweep, yeah,
wrong with who won anyway. So it's hard for me to really sit here and say that a one-off is a good idea, but crazier things have happened. If I was going for leverage instead of doing a one-off, I'd just make a couple lineups with at least one of the underdog teams and hope for just a random upset tomorrow. So we'll see. That could happen. I mean, we've already seen it happen a little bit this year, so who's to say?
Yeah, it's I think we're probably more likely to discuss one-offs on the 4-game slates just because we'll at least have other favorites to to play around with, and obviously
Yep.
we get our first one on Wednesday with LCK opening up, and then it's mostly 4-game slates, thankfully. So
Yep.
I
And
don't
that'll
know
be
what.
nice because more options, you're going to get ownership more spread out. So that'll be helpful. So
For
that'll
sure.
be good. And I'm hoping because the prize pools are already starting to look a little weak after 4 days, and I don't think it's because people aren't playing. I mean, the contests seem to be filling from what I can tell. But I think the 2-game slates are just kind of a turnoff for everybody because there's so many duplicate lineups. I mean, you and I were talking earlier. That main GPP today, I think it was 10K first prize, and it was split so many ways that they all split like $380 out of that 10K pie. So, I mean, it is a turnoff when you've only got two games on a slate. You're going to have way more. I mean, you're going to have duplication, a lot of duplication on the 4-game slates, but
Yeah.
on the 2-game slates, it's just that much worse. So I'm hoping, starting tomorrow, maybe they'll give us a decent GPP and some bigger prize pools to kick off the 4-game slates, and then probably once the Western leagues start up, at least on those opening days, I'm sure we'll see some big GPPs. But they're not. We don't have to worry about them right now. They're still a few days away. So
I was talking to somebody earlier that the tomorrow's main GPP is 60K with 20K to first. There's also a Premier League slate later in the day that's 50K. So like League of Legends is bigger than a standard Premier League slate. Both of them are 2 games. But so Wednesday they've been offering like satellites and getting tickets for these. Wednesday's slate is at least the main GPP's up is 80,000, which
nice.
was actually smaller than I expected, given that like Tuesday is 60 and like going to 80 is like some like special like LCK opener seemed a little small. That one's 20K to first, which is the same top prize for the 60K. So obviously it's Wednesday will be a little flatter, but I think they might creep up, and hopefully the NBA does not shut down as there's some talk.
I know.
But the last time we saw that happen, League of Legends got pretty popular. So
Yeah, it was good. It was good for League, but man, I don't. Just as a sports fan, like I don't even really follow the NBA very closely at all. I'll watch randomly, but like just as a guy who likes sports, it's like I don't want these leagues to shut down.
No.
And obviously that's not good for RotoWire either.
Right.
So I'm hoping that we don't end up going that route, even if it's beneficial to the league for that to happen. I'm not going to be wishing for it as a guy who just wants to follow these sports leagues and stuff too. That wouldn't be good, but yeah, I mean, I guess it'd be silver lining would be giant League of Legends GPPs again. So I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. If you guys have been enjoying these podcasts, if you could this one specifically, if you could just hit the like button below, feel free to subscribe as well, and you'll get hit the bell, and you'll be notified of all future episodes that we have. We'll be back tomorrow to preview this 80,000 GPP with the LCK opening back up. I have a few more teams to discuss, which is always fun. So, Ethan, thanks for that. Good luck tomorrow.
Yep. You too, Andrew. Thanks.